Well, there's a new budget battle brewing in Washington, one between the White House and legendary journalist Bob Woodward. The Obama administration now slamming the reporter in the blame game over who is responsible for these automatic budget cuts set to go into effect on Friday. You remember President Obama last week had the first responders before him telling us that they were all going to lose their jobs and it was all the Republicans' fault and so on and so forth. Then it came out a reference to Bob Woodward's book in which he claimed this was all President Obama's idea. Now, the finger-pointing actually began during the third presidential debate last fall. Listen to President Obama's remarks about these budget cuts known as the sequester.
The sequester is not something that I proposed. It's something that Congress has proposed. It will not happen.
It will not happen. And I didn't propose it. Not true, says Woodward, who was granted intimate access to the White House during research for his latest book, The Price of Politics. In a Washington Post editorial on Friday, Bob Woodward wrote, quote, "The president and Lew," meaning Jack Lew, "had this wrong. My extensive reporting for my book, The Price of Politics, shows that the automatic spending cuts were initiated by the White House and were the brainchild of Lew and of White House Congressional Relations Chief Rob Neighbors." Well, now the White House is pushing back on Bob Woodward, and Bob Woodward is pushing back again against the White House. Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, Ben Shapiro. He's editor-at-large of Breitbart News and author of the book Bullies: How the Left's Culture of Fear and Intimidation Silences America. And Julie Roginski, who's a Fox News contributor and former political advisor to New Jersey Senator Frank Lautenberg. All right, so this is getting a little uncomfortable. I mean, they're fighting with somebody they loved so much. They gave him all this access to the White House. But they only love him, apparently, Ben, when he's saying what they want him to say, because they're taking direct shots at him now, and he doesn't care. He's not going away quietly saying, "I'm telling you, they're not being honest."
I would imagine this is the last time Bob Woodward is going to have intimate access to the White House. We've seen from this White House that media outlets that treat them well are treated with just kid gloves. I mean, they are thrown Scooby treats. These people are lap dogs, and they are thrown Scooby treats when they do things right, and when they do things wrong, then they are banned from the White House. We saw this past week. Politico had the daring to run a piece questioning Obama's transparency, and they were promptly uninvited from an off-the-record meeting with all of Obama's usual favorite outlets like BuzzFeed, and usually Politico's included in that. Not a surprise that they're going after reporters now. They have a very tight lid on what they tell to the media and who they talk to, and they're not fond of taking questions. That's why at the governor's meeting last night, President Obama said, you know, let's have the press get out of here so I can answer some questions. This is sort of the way they handle the press now.
You know, Julie, it's one of those things of who do you believe? Do you believe the White House that has a political stake in this, or do you believe Bob Woodward, who is not known for bashing the left or making up lies about President Obama and so on? I mean, is there a credibility problem with, I'm not talking about President Obama, but the spokesperson, Jay Carney, who's coming out and calling Bob Woodward willfully wrong on this, and Woodward's writing back saying, this is a classic case of distortion and confusion by the White House.
You know, I have no idea. I'm not going to defend the White House on this because I truly have no idea what went on. But I do have to say this is such typical D.C. nonsense. It makes me very happy I don't live down there or work down there anymore. Because it's just this typical nonsense of, I don't know, the reporter had said one thing, we said something else. Let's figure out who to blame. Meanwhile, we've got a sequester that both sides seem to agree is not the best idea. And instead of that, they're focused on deciding whether they're going to blame Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward is going to decide whether he's going to go and blame the process rather than try to break some news on the actual sequester. You know, this is just such, this is exactly why people in this country are just so fed up with D.C. And this is Exhibit A. I saw this story, and I kind of set a pox on both these houses, on the Washington Post and on the White House.
But why do you put a pox?
Silly.
Why do you put a pox on Bob Woodward when let's for purposes of this question take him at his word that what he reported in his book and in his Washington Post piece is true, that the White House that the White House came up with this idea, and that what he heard President Obama say at that debate was absolutely wrong, and what he's saying now is not true.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that is your obligation as a reporter to come out and report the facts.
Good for him, but my point is actually the larger point, which is who cares whose stupid idea this was? Let's, you know,
well, dishonesty by a president, if that's what Woodward is alleging, is relevant.
I don't even care if it is the president's fault. You know what? Let's blame this on the president. Let's say that he's the one that proposed this idea. Let's even give Bob Woodward that. The bottom line is he doesn't think this is the best thing to do. The Republicans
I get you. But Ben, what I'm trying to get at, and
No.
the sequesters, I mean, it's crazy. And both sides are to blame. It's at this point, it's like, all right, who came up with it? Whatever. But they both agreed to it. Okay, that's what people need to know.
Right.
The Democrats, the Republicans,
no,
the President, they all agreed. But the question is, for this purpose, for this discussion, Ben, is do we care whether the President, whether the White House is actively misleading?
Yes, because the White House does this on a regular basis. And not only do they do this on a regular basis and treat the media as the Obama drool cup carrying folks that they are, but they actually are actively lying if Woodward is correct. And what we're seeing here is the Obama administration portraying the sequester as the end of 2012, the movie. I mean, the world is going to collapse if we cut 2.4% of future spending. Towers will collapse, people will be killed, teachers will be out of work, the world will be on fire. And if it turns out that Obama is the one who proposed this thing, he doesn't get to make those claims because then he has to take the blame for it. Truth is, Republicans are just as much to blame for this because they're jumping on the same bandwagon. World is going to end if we cut future spending. Guys, if you want to win this debate, a little bit important that you suggest to Americans, hey, maybe if we cut government spending, not only is that not the worst thing in the world, that would actually be a good thing. Otherwise, you're stepping into the Obama camp.
He's now saying Julie Carney is, despite calling Woodward willfully wrong, he also did offer a public statement last week saying the sequester, and I quote, was an idea the White House put forward. So, I mean, it's there he seems to be accepting, as Woodward put it, paternity of the idea. Right. At the same time, they're calling Woodward a liar and suggesting that this originated with the Republicans. I mean, this is the kind of thing that turns off the American public.
It does, and both sides, yes, you're absolutely right. The White House, the messaging on this is crazy and inconsistent. The Republicans' messaging on this is crazy and it's inconsistent. They want to cut spending, but yet when it comes to the sequester, they don't want to cut spending. So, on the one hand, spending is, as some people say, is something we have to cut immediately, but then it's Obama's fault that the sequester is happening, that we shouldn't cut spending.
Yeah.
Again, this is why people's heads want to explode when they see this day in and day out. I work in politics, and I'm at the point where I can't take it anymore. I can't even imagine how people who don't really pay attention on a daily basis, but just tune in once in a while, just deal with this.
It's like we're at the point now where we don't really expect Washington to tell us the truth. I mean, is that where we are, Ben? Like, it's not that big a shock.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think that the larger point here is about the sequester. I think the larger point here is about the relationship of the media to the Obama administration and the administration, the White House in general. I mean, what I see over and over now is that every time the White House wants to get a narrative out, they go to a few specific outlets that they enjoy going to. And when one of those outlets has the daring to actually say something mildly against the President of the United States, he immediately turns around and cuts them off at the knees. What he's doing is this is an active attempt by the White House and by the Democratic Party to openly say that the media has to parrot their message or they're going to be cut out of the loop or personally attacked the way that Bob Woodward is. Even assume that Bob Woodward is wrong on this. Assume that he's wrong on this. The idea that they're going to come out and attack Bob Woodward personally if he mistakenly reported it, as opposed to, okay, let's have a discussion about what actually happened here. How did this story happen? It just goes to show that this is a White House that is vindictive. They treat the media as though they are they are the abusive father, and the children who are being abused are the media. If they're good, abusive father treats them well today. If they're bad, out to the outhouse they go.
It's very inconsistent for the children. Wait, I do want to say Woodward has an interesting piece. It's in the Washington Post. He quotes the president at that debate. We played you the sound where he said specifically that this was not something, that the sequester is not something I proposed. And then Woodward goes on to say not only did President Obama personally approve of the plan to propose the sequester, but he says specifically, then his lieutenants did so at 2:30 p.m., July 27, 2011. I mean, the man's got dates, he's got times, he's got participants, he's got the exact sequence in which he claims it happened. And then he's got Jay Carney last week saying, in fact, it was an idea the White House put forward. So it's interesting to hear the pushback now in any event. Who knows, right? We'll watch it play out. In the meantime, it looks like these budget cuts are going to take place on Friday.